Bruchim Aboim B'Shem Hashem. B'Shem Irgin Shir, I'd like to welcome everyone to tonight's shir from Rabbi Moshe Scheinerman Shlita, Rav Kollel Bnei Hayeshivos, on his Golus stopping us from growing in Yiddishkeit. We'd like to give a big Yeshikoyach, one of the board members of Irgin Shir, Mr. and Mrs. Eli Goldbaum, for sponsoring tonight's shir, L'chvoid Rav Scheinerman Shlita. We'd also like to give a big Yeshikoyach to Rabbi Moshe Scheinerman Shlita for sponsoring tonight's shir, Lila Nishmas Oviv, Reb Shlomo ben Shmuel Yosef Zchon Levracha Yotzat tonight Tessa in Tammuz. Jenishmos Tzur B'Tzor HaChaim to have the great schus is sponsoring a shir. Call Irgin Shir Torah at 718-851-8651 or email ist@yeshivanet.com. It's my cover to call on Rav Scheinerman for tonight's drasha.
Thank you. Shus Maronim v'Rabbonim v'Rabboisai. The pasuk tells us, "Hein am levodod yishkoin, ubagoyim lo yischashov." The Targum Yonason explains, translates Pshat and Posuk, B'lechudehoin. A Yid is to live in this world b'yichidus, alone. Alone means to the exclusion of everybody who is not a Yid. Everybody and anybody who lives a life not al pi derech Yisrael sobu. And he goes on and he says as follows. Levadim means that we should not be nimshach achar hazulas. That's what it means. Levad, alone, I'm separate. I am not going to become influenced by the mode of behavior or of living of those who are outside the portals of Yiddishkeit. Rav Yerucham Levovitz, the Mir Mashgiach, says Dvorim Nifloim, and he says, Soid Oilam Habo. For one to be Zoicha to Oilam Habo depends upon, on a corresponding level, how much of a Levadi he is, how much of an Atzmoyi he is, how independent and how separate and how cloistered he is from the Goyish Welt, to the extent and on a corresponding level that he is not part of the Goyish Welt, not being influenced by the Goyish Welt. He is a person who, as again I quote the Loshen, Soid Oilam Habohu, Ad Kama She'odom Levadi Uliyitzmi. Bemes, our Zayda Yankov Avinu taught us this lesson way back when in Mitzrayim. When Yankov Avinu says to Netziv, made sure that we live in Goshen, away from the Goyim, away from the influence of the Mitzrim. We should not learn from their modes of behavior and ways of living. That was the way we would be able to continue existing without any problems. However, the pasuk tells us, "Vatimolehu oretz oisom," that the entire Egypt, the country of Egypt, was full with Yidden. Yidden left their parameters and went to another place. They went to places where Goyim live. And because of that, not only that, it says, Bo'akos of lahagdim bezeh sibas sinas mitzrayim exeris hamalchus. That caused, it's a murder geshtickle. Not only are we doing a disservice to ourselves, but it goes further. The Siba, the direct precursor of the Gzeiros, of the decrees of the Mitzrim, and the Malchus of Mitzrayim, the kingdom of Egypt, to create and carry out decrees against the Yidden was for one reason only, because the Yidden were going outside of their boundaries that they were told to live by Borei Olam, by Yankov Avinu. So he says as follows. Not only that, Shepasku Milomu, the Yidden stopped doing bris milah because they wanted to be more like the Goy. The more they were into the Goyim, the more they were involved with the Goyim, the more they became influenced by the Goyim. That's a Yisoid, based upon the Targum Yonason. Yankov, Rabbi Yerucham says, Yankov Avinu, Avinu Hazokein, taught his children that there are no two options. It is not the optional, it is the imperative. Ein zel luxus, says Rabbi Yerucham Levovitz. It is not a luxury that I will keep myself away from the goyim. El tzorich kiyumi mimadrega rishayna. If we want to continue existing, if we want to live, if we want to thrive, if we want to grow, the only way we can possibly experience those milos is to the extent we keep ourselves away from the goyim. The very existence of the Jew depends upon to what madrege, and as mentioned on a corresponding level, the Jew is zoicher to keep himself away from the goy. Rabbi Yerucham Levovitz makes another most important observation. He says if you will scroll through the mitzvahs, asay, the positive commandments, and the negative commandments of the Torah, taryag mitzvahs, you will find that most of the mitzvahs, kishnedaftev, when you will turn page after page after page, you will come to take notice that most of the overwhelming majority of positive commandments and negative commandments concern the inyan of Kamaisi Eretz Mitzrayim Asher Yishavtem Bo Loisasu, Kamaisi Eretz Canaan Asher Maybe Eschem Shoma Loisasu, V'chukasem Loisalechu. The overwhelming amount of commands by Bari Olam in the oral tradition and in the written tradition also is keep yourself away from the goy. It's an observation. And he says something very, very powerful. When Chazal tell us, when the Pasuk tells us, K'maisa Eretz Mitzrayim, Canaan, Asher maybe Eschem Shoma Loisasu, Chukosem Loisalechu. You know what I hear in those words of the Chukosem Loisalechu? Says Rabbi Yerucham the Mashgiach. I'll tell you what I hear. Ani Shemeh Mizeh, I hear from this a azhora, beware, be careful. Be careful, azhara. Watch it. Shelo yeh etzlechem football. Now, football in Lita was really soccer. But this is what he says. I hear in these commands, keep away from soccer. Now, what does soccer have to do with Yiddishkeit? The answer is it has so much to do with Yiddishkeit. Because to the extent that we have an affinity with the goy, albeit soccer, but if there is an affinity with the goy on any level that detracts to the extent that it is a virtual impossibility for them to coexist, to have a coexistence between a Yid and Yiddishkeit and a goy with goyishkeit is a virtual impossibility. And therefore the Torah is telling you there is no isser of football. Rabbi Yerucham's words, football. There's no issue, there's nothing that you're doing wrong per se. Leave out the bittul Torah element, which is very difficult to leave out, but leave it out for a few moments. Rabbi Yerucham is machadish to us a chidush. The job of the Jew in this world, as commanded by the overwhelming majority of mitzvahs aseh and mitzvahs lo aseh, is to keep away from the goy. I once mentioned l'chura. I think I'm right. It says in the Sifri, in the Torah's Kohanim, it says Sifro that that a Jew is not allowed to go to the theatronim of the goy and the theaters and the another thing it says over there. It says stadionim, stadiums of the goy. So, if I'm not mistaken, I believe in the Torah, according to the Sifra, there is a Vadaydika Posuk which tells us, keep away, and that's a love. Rabbi Yerucham is saying, he's not invoking what I just told you. He's saying without love, without bittul haseh, there's a separate isser, a separate, we're being commanded by the Torah, more correctly said, to keep away from anything that's goyish. That's Rabbi Yerucham. The Netziv says as follows: Hein am levodod, ozai yishkoin. If you shall remain separate from the goy, then yishkoin, you'll be able to live in peace. Aval im bagoyim, this is the Netziv. Im bagoyim, if you are nisarev, you mix with the goy. Oz lo yischashev. You know what that really means? The goy will not be machshav you. Not machshav you means it's one step prior to doing something overtly against the Jew, to hurt the Jew. If you're not machshav somebody, there's no problem in hurting him. He is a nobody. So this is what the Netziv is telling us, that if you will be bodod, oz yishkoin, you'll be able to live like a yid. Yishkoin, like a yid. Aval im bagoyim, if you live like the goy, shenis arvu bagoyim, dvorim nifloyim, then oz lo yischashev. The goy will not be machshav you a kiyuzer. This is dvorim nifloyim ad lemiyoid. The goy will then become a nirdaf, become a roidev. You'll be the nirdaf, and he'll be a roidev of the Jew. Why? Because you refuse to live separate from the goy. The goy does not really want you on a natural level, spiritual natural level. The goy and the yid have no shaykhs, Esav and Yankiv. The goy will then be roidev the yid. I once heard a phenomenal appreciation of Rav Leib Malin when he built Beis HaTalmud in Bensonhurst. So someone asked him, why in Bensonhurst? Borough Park is a stone's throw away. Talking about in the early 50s, late 40s, early 50s. And there were a lot of Yidden in Borough Park. So Rav Leib said as follows. In Bensonhurst, you have the Italians. In Borough Park, you have the Jews. But the Jews in Borough Park are not Torah Dika Yidden. In the 40s and 50s, they were Freie Yidden, modern. They had ideas which ran contrary, in contradistinction to the Hashkafas HaTorah that we have, B'derech Yisrael Sabah. And Rav Leib was afraid, perhaps we can become influenced in any level by those Jews because they are Jews. So on a natural level, we will involve ourselves with them. L'machzir, l'shlish, l'reviyah. Partly, a third, a quarter, we will involve ourselves. That's a danger. Keep yourself away from the possibility of becoming influenced by those who, Mashenke and the Italians, we're not going to become influenced by the Italians. That's just to give you an appreciation of what this hashkafa was. By the way, Rav Leib Malin was a Talmud of Rav Yerucham Levovitz. The pasuk tells us, we say the pasuk in Eicha, Eicha Yoshvo Bodod. It says a pasuk in Tehillim. It says the pasuk Zechar, Bezar Amim Korvois Yechafeitzun. The Lashon is Bezar Amim Krevois Yechafeitzun, which means what's Goyrim Sheis Pazru Kol Akach Ba'amim. What caused that we should have to go from Medina to Medina, as we shall soon see? The Yid is always being taken away from where he lives, and sent into exile. Mashach Feitzim Liskarev, that which you want to become close to the Goy, it creates a tremendous danger for the existence of the Yid, spiritually speaking, and therefore, HaKadosh Baruch Hu, to protect the Jew from becoming more and more influenced by the Goy, Hashem will send you away. And we'll see that soon in a few minutes. There's a posik. Avram says to Avram, HaKadosh Baruch Hu says to Avram Avinu, Ki ger yeh zaracha be'eretz lo lehem. Says Rav Chatzkel Levenstein, this is not a nevuah. Listen to these words closely. Ze lo nevuah b'chlal. Ki ger yeh zaracha. It's a hazorah. It's a warning. HaKadosh Baruch Hu is telling Avram Avinu about his children. It's a warning. Ki ger yeh zaracha. Dahainu, what's he telling him? Kloimar, Tomid Yu Yisrael Matzav Shel Ger. I warn you, the Jew in the Golus should always be in a matzav of ger. No affinity to the Goyish world. None whatsoever. To the extent that we show that we have no affinity to the Goyish world, then we will be able to live in peace. If not, there's a midas hachesed of Borei Olam to take us away, so that we should not continue being influenced by the Goy. In the Haggadah Shel Pesach, we say, Tzei ulamad, ma bikesh Lovon ho'arami. Now, Lovon was mishpacha, and yet he wanted to annihilate bikesh lakaras hakolim, and therefore Yaakov Avinu had to leave. But if the truth be told, says the Mefarshim, Dvachim Nifloim, that you can, here was Laban, who was considered a relative. Mekurovim imay harbe, kulonu bonov, we were sons of Laban, grandchildren. Cholzos bikesh lakos hakol. Avapichain, he was bikesh lakos, he wanted to knock out everything. And why did he want to do it? We were living together. Yankov and Laban were living together. If they would not be living together, perhaps it would not have been the case. But thus steht doch do kolonu bonov, loy rak es Yankov es kol hayadus. He wanted to knock out everything. Es Yankov es elush and eskarvu imoy. Why? Shehayu kroivim umurovim im Lavan. When you become close to the Lavans of the world, let him be your relative. When you become close to the Lavans of the world, that is a point of danger, and that can chas v'shalom eradicate one's entire Yiddishkeit. There's a Yeduadike Meshech Chochma. It's genius. It was written, many say, Baruch HaKodesh. He talked about the late 1800s, early 1900s in Europe. And he said that I think that we're going to have a situation where there'll be a tremendous churban. This is 40 years, approximately before World War II. And he says, there's a Shulchan Aruch that Geiger, Shem Rishon Yirkov from the Reform Movement wrote, a new Shulchan Aruch. And he says that Shulchan Aruch is going to lead to a different Shulchan Aruch of the Goyim against the Yidden. And sure enough, Hitler Yamach Shemo wrote his Protocols of Zion, which were all a Shulchan Aruch of how to decimate, how to totally annihilate the Jewish people. And then he says as follows, you should know. Let me explain to you the history of the Jew. The Jew is sent into exile. They're living in a land where they can't live with the Goyim anymore. The Goyim are starting up with them and pillaging and burning and killing. So we go to another Medina. In the new Medina, says the Meshech Chochma, we don't know anybody. We don't know the language. We don't know the culture. So we stay cloistered to ourselves. And even though we've come and we don't have any Torah, but eventually we build Torah. We learn Torah. And we are able to be successful spiritually. However, he says, after 200 years or so, this is his words, not mine, when the Yid becomes more comfortable because he understands the language, he understands the culture. And then Ad Kadei Kach, they say, this is his Lashon, and I quote, Ki Berlin hi Yerushalayim. The Yidden in those days were saying that Berlin, Yerushalayim, out with the old, in with the new. Out with Yerushalayim. And now you have Berlin, which is culture and had the greatest scholars in the Goyish Welt. They're the ones, Al Tismach Yisrael El Gil Ba'amim. And therefore he says as follows, if you want to be able to live in a Medina without the Goyim wanting to throw you out of that Medina, at that place where you're living, there's only one way. To the extent that the Yid makes Kiddush, the Goy will not make Havdalah. If the Yid does not make Kiddush, the Goy will make Havdalah. He will separate us from them, which will immediately lead to persecution at all. This is a Meshech Chochma. Yevakir b'rayin koizev et asher henchilu aviseinu. Yishar chadoshes b'shekoyach v'hi ema oid ma'at yoshev loima sheker nachalu aviseinu. It could get to a point where Yidden, you'll hear from them articulating, who says you should learn Torah? Be a good Jew. Who says you should try to learn a meaningful part of your life in Torah and practice Torah and mitzvahs and practice tznius? There are many people out there, who do not have these hashkofas, whatever the reason might be, but they have definitely gone away from derech avosav. That is a warning sign. If that happens, and it can happen to others, then HaKadosh Baruch Hu says, in order to protect you, I want you out of this land. There's a sefer written by, in the time of the Goyim, Sefer Abris. Sefer Abris. He says something so powerful, written 250 years ago. Someone told me this sefer did not leave the table of Rav Shach, Zechron Levrocha. When I heard that, I went and bought the sefer. And I see over here he says something, he's bothered by a question. He says, I don't understand. Please explain to me. Oil the door shall I niv in the Beis Hamikdash b'yom. We don't have a Beis Hamikdash. Why not? He says, do you know that we are learning so stark? Listen to his words. I'll come back to the first words. Chakarti heite b'chol levavi, l'das sibas abrichas hagolus. Why is there such a golus? Ve'era hine b'doros ha'ele yesh Torah, harbe b'Yisrael. Yidden are learning Torah. Marbim ha'om lilmoid b'shnayis, Gemara, u'poiskim. Yidden are learning everything. This 250 years ago in Vilna. Sifrei Kabbalah, Gam Kein Loimdim. You hear? Written 250 years ago. Why is Tzion not coming to take us? And we have tefillah. And they cry and they want they want Mashiach to come and he's not coming. They're giving so much, they're giving stockers and mitzvahs. Malayim mitzvahs karimoin. The Yidden are Malayim mitzvahs karimoin. Im kol zeh shnas guli leibo. And he complains, the Goyim, the Christians, Yimach Shemom, the Catholic, they look at us and they say it's 1,700 years. Then it was 1,700 years. Now it's almost 2,000. It is 3,000, I think. 1,700 years ago, it was then only 1,700 that we were in Golus, and the Catholics and the Christians and were laughing. You're waiting to come to go to Eretz Yisrael with Mashiach Tzidkenu. Look, you're in Golus for 1,700 years already. He brings all this down. I don't know what else we could do. What are we doing wrong? Written 250 years ago. Says the Sefer Abris, I think I have shot. Allow me, you have to hear his words. Please, I'll read them slow, but listen to his words. Chipasti, what is the mafsid umatzosi? And I found the reason why Mashiach has yet to come. Torah, mitzvahs, Kabbalah, Tefillah, et all. He says, everything they do, if you look into their, if they were to be more introspective, or be more Freudian, Yimach Shemoy, Hashem Shalom Yirkov, I think it was a Yid, to be psychoanalyze why we do all that we do. And these are his words, not mine. That people are really not interested in a Kodesh Baruch Hu. No. They have other cheshbonis. The Toyalis Atzmon. What does that mean? They're learning mitzvahs, tzedakah. They're doing everything. That's Loil Shmo. You know why they're davening? Because they want a good place in Olam Haba. Do you hear? That's considered not doing for Kvoid Shemayim. The Geula Laman Shemoy, they're not interested in being emancipated from this Golus Laman Shemoy for Kodesh Baruch Hu. If anything, they want it for themselves. We'll be able to live in Yerushalayim and enjoy Yerushalayim. And then he goes to town. We want to live long. You know why? Because we want to be with our wives, Bishtoi, Ubonov, and our children. That's why we want to live long. And that should not be the reason why we want to live long. We should want to live long so we can become Torah mitzvahs. And the Yehudi is only interested in parnosa and kavod. He'll tell you, I want parnosa, I give tzedakah. But the truth be told, he wants parnosa. He wants money, bucks. And he wants to build himself a big house. The chatzar, the avnei gozis with marble and stone. So the house will live long, as they say in the classics, forever after. His children should be there, and he should enjoy life with his children. He should die on his bed without any complications, just close his eyes, and then the Rav of the ear will say a nice hesped. That's what I want. Let's not rock the boat. Live long, let the kids enjoy, and the Rav will say a good hesped. V'yeh lo levaya gedoyla miyoid. Written 250 years, I stress it, by the Sefer HaBris. He should have a big levaya. It shouldn't come out on July 4th weekend in the city, if you know what I mean, if you get the drift. Okay? They should make for him a nice sign, plaque with the Beis HaKnesses. And every Yontiv, he'll yell and scream, L'shana haba b'Yushalayim. But you know what, says Sefer HaBris? He's not interested in L'shana haba b'Yushalayim. You know why? He's too busy with the architects building that dream house of his. He can't come now. I'm still building. It's a 2-3 year project. I can't have Mashiach now. These are his words. I can't. I can't have Mashiach now. Let's understand. I am building. I didn't even put the marble in the bathrooms yet, let alone the kitchen. How can Mashiach come now? These are his words at Sefer HaBris. We're being told and taught by Isai that we should perhaps be more introspective, more psychoanalyze ourselves. Why do we want to make the money we make? Why are we performing the mitzvahs we perform? And why do we practice the Yiddishkeit that we practice? Is this indeed, you can't make this away. He lived in Vilna at the time of the Goyim, 250 years ago. The only hatzolah for the Yid in the Golus is to the extent, as mentioned, we make ourselves Kiddush. If we make that Kiddush that we mentioned before, then the Goy will not be Mavadil, will not say, I'm different than the Jew, and therefore beat up the Jew and harass the Jew and kill the Jew. The Jew will not be a subject in the mind of the Goyim. Now you realize why I'm mentioning this, because of what we're going through, especially in New York. But you know something? Halavai should not have been true. But when there's smoke, sometimes they say, as the adage goes, there's fire. I heard that a fellow gave Kiddush in Shul after a certain basketball team won a championship. Is there any greater manifestation of Irvuv Imagoyin than that? What shaykhs do we have with the Goy? What shaykhs do we have with the Goy? That Yidden should spend astronomical amounts of money to go into a arena and see a basketball game, which I heard happened. However, it should not have happened, but I heard from reliable sources that it happened. That is a manifestation of you are going to their tiatrois and istadiyois, like the Sifra brings down. And that can, chas v'shalom, lead to the greatest most tragic of circumstances. The Yid is not separate from the Goy. The Yid is living his life exactly like the Goy. Perhaps when he puts on tefillin in the morning, it's not, but there could also be reasons why he put it on the tefillin. Who knows? So this is something which I wanted to bring to your attention. Rav Nosson Bachfeugel says that he once saw the Chavetz Chaim making the bracha of Shlo Yasani Goy, and took the Chavetz Chaim 10 minutes to make the bracha. 10 minutes. And he asked the Chavetz Chaim, Rebbe, why are you taking so long in making the bracha? Whereupon the Chavetz Chaim told this individual, don't you understand? Before I say Shlo Yasani Goy, I want to make sure that I have no Goyishkeit in me. It took the Heilige Chavetz Chaim a tremendous amount of toil, meditation, thinking, adasoif, not allowing himself to be fooled or faked, to understand, to make sure that he had no Goyishkeit in him. That's major. Someone once asked, if I'm not mistaken, in the Vardika, we make the bracha of Shlo Yasani Goy. By every other one, which is a negative, Shlo Yasani Goy. But all the other brachas, we say, hit matir asurim, zakef kfufim, v'chulu, all in the positive. So why not? And if you're making that, so why not say she'oseli Yehudi? That's the shayla. Says the Nevardika, Mordika Vort. It's a chesed that we're not a goy, but to make a Jew, it's upon you. To make yourself the Jew that you should be, that's incumbent upon every one of us. We should do that. Shlo Yasani Goy, we say, Baruch Hashem Bocha Bon Mikol Amen. But make sure that we understand how choshev it is that indeed we are different than the Goy. Rav Yankel Galinsky brings down me'ain such a ma'aseh that Rav Shach walked into the Beis Medrash and he saw Rav Yankel Galinsky in Ponevezh, and Rav Shach asked him, "Who is the president of the United States? Who won the elections?" And Rav Yankel said, "Carter." So Rav Shach said, but Rav Yankel asked him, "Why do you want to know?" He says, "What do you mean, why do I want to know? When I make Shlosh Ani Go, you think I mean the Polish, to the Russische, anti-Semitin? Ich mein, I feel the President of the United States. I am so choshev. We are so choshev, so far removed, as we shall see in a few moments, from being like the Goy, so far removed, that let him be the President of the United States of America, the most powerful man in the world. Me, as a Jew, so far, that surpasses. I'm a different nivra. I'm a different form of creation. In fact, the Maral Miprag says there are 5 forms of creation, each one more sophisticated than the other. The doimim, the rock, the stone. The tzemeach, that which grows, foliage. Then you have, and produce, then you have the chai, the animal kingdom. Then you have the medaber, the human kingdom, the human race. And then you have a 5th one. That's 4. What's the 5th? A Yisrael. The nation of Israel. Every Yid. You know, someone once asked me concerning this morale, isn't it racist that we, to the exclusion of everybody else in the world, are a different form of, a more sophisticated form of creation than every other creation? I told the person, racism is only if it's not true. But if it's true, it's not racist. Think into it, Rabbi said. That's what we're saying. We say every day, 3 times a day, Oleinu l'shabeach l'Adonai HaKoyel, l'seis gedula liyotzeh bereishis, shle'asonu k'goyei ha'arotzois. It's a bracha we're saying, you did not make me like the goyim of the world, and yet you go to a ball game? How does it jive with your Oleinu? Not finished. K'mish b'choyso adoma. Shle'esom chalkeinu kehem, v'garaleinu k'chol hamoinam. This is a manifestation of total disengagement from the goy. Kivin shekach, sha'altiv, madua mavorchim b'sheila, the shaila I told you about, but go weiter now. But that, so, and Rav Shach, I'm sorry, that's that nekuda. So we're saying the Aleinu Shabech davening, tefillah, is in itself a manifestation of a bittul lachalutin of the goy, a total bittul of the goy and the goyish mode of living. The Chofetz Chaim spent 10 minutes of his holy time to make sure that before he would say Shlo Yasani Goy, that he would not have any, not even part Goy in him. That's major. Sometimes it can happen. Let us think for a few moments, a little bit deeper. Why indeed, perhaps, are we Mesiachis with the Goy? Why do we have a Shaychis with the Goy? So it could very well be that we feel that perhaps the Goy might have something above us, or something that will be equal to us, and might be kedai to respect the Goy, or the way he lives his life. Says the Chofetz Chaim, I want you to know that by the case of the Meraglim, we read in Pasha Shalach a few weeks ago, listen to the words of the Chofetz Chaim. Shekach misrachesh kishma'avdim es ha'amunah. When a person loses emunah atzmi, ve'imakirim et be'erech atzmi. Rabbi said there's an avoid, a Torah shlema, which I'm going to bring to your attention in a few moments. A Torah shlema of appreciating one's own Hayeshivos, and it's necessary. It's also the imperative, as you shall soon see. Says the Chofetz Chaim. If a person sinks or sulks into himself and says, I'm nothing special, and he has a low self-esteem, thinking to himself, who am I and what am I? And therefore, here goes the kicker. Therefore, we think that others look at us in such a manner. If I look at myself as being a nothing, not worth too much, not more superior to the goy, then I think that the goy looks at me the same way. That he thinks of me as being a nothing. Says the Chavetz Chaim, and that's a toys. Allow me to read you from Rabbi Aaron Kotler a few lines. His words are too choshev. Rabbi Aaron says, I want you to know, before I get to Rabbi Aaron, Arbeinu Yoina, Arishad, Yeda Ha'ish, it's incumbent upon every man and woman to know. Ha'erech atzmoi. Who are we? It says Hashem of all, but do you know that before HaKadosh Baruch Hu gave the Torah to Klal Yisrael, do you know what HaKadosh Baruch Hu told us, Rabbi Yisai? That you are Mamleches Koyanim v'Goy Kodosh. Says Hashem of all, but the Mashgiach of Ber Yankiv, it's quite evident that prior to us accepting the Torah, there must be this full understanding and appreciation of one's self. Who are you? You're a Yid. Yodea erech atzmoi. V'yakim ma'ilosoi ma'ilosoi oivoisav v'gdulosam v'chashivusam v'chibosam eisla bari yisborach. Know who you come from. You don't come from an old man who was nifta, and you saw him the last years of your life. No. You come from Yidden, of generations of Yidden, who are Bnei Malachim. You come from the Nevi'im, prophets. You come from Avram, Yitzchak, and Yankov. You come from Sarah, Rivka, Rachel, and Leah. That's the Rabbeinu Yoina. Says Rav Aaron Kotler. As I began, Chayvus by name. We should meditate and think. Lahakir hachashivus hagadoyle sheish by batzmusa. Ubekoyach shemisava by bepoyel imakarose b'chshivazu. And to the extent that we appreciate how choshev we are, will we act differently. I said over many times, my Rebbe Rav Gifta used to always say, the greatest rebuke, the greatest form of rebuke that was ever meted out to a boy, to a bocher in the Lithuanian yeshivas. Do you know what it was, Rabbi Yisai? In Yiddish, es passt euch nicht. You're too choshev. You're a mamleches kohenim v'goy kodosh. Es passt euch nicht. It's not in accordance with your chashivas. It's unbecoming of you based upon your chashivus. Says of Aaron Kotler, Zeo goyim godel, the ikri tikun ha-maisim, yoisim mikol. When a person works on himself, first know thine self. Know who you are. Yistoid godel bi'ikir, mahalach avodas ha'odom, yoisim mikol. Tzorch lisboinen, will a hakir recognize, think, meditate, recognize my loisa ve'erech atzmai. That way will keep you away from chet. Me, a scion of prophets, of the Avos and Imois. Me, a son of someone who said Shema Yisrael when he or she went into the crematorium, into the gas ovens of Auschwitz and Dachau and Birkenau. Me, who I come from Gedolei Torah, Prushim, I should act in a way which is not in accordance with my chashivas. Now let's think for 1 second before I go weiter. How does it pass for a melech, King George V, to sit in the stands of an arena where going to playing a basketball game? Ein lecha bittel on one's self chashivas gedoyle mizu. Forget about the other cheshbonis that they're all a bunch of anti-Semites. As it is, no problem wearing kafiyas when they sit down over there when they come in. That also should serve to say, give a cook. And these people are machavim. Rav Aaron Kotler ends up and says, and in accordance with your hakora, recognition of your milos, lo yovo yedei chet. You'll never come to a chet. Rav Tzadok HaKohen says as follows. He says, and I quote, this has to be quoted, because if not, you'll never believe it. Buckle your seatbelts, Rabbi Yisai. Listen closely. Says Rav Tzadok HaKohen, Kishem shetzorach odom lahamin b'Hashem Yisborach, kach tzorach achakach lahamin b'atzmoi. Kishem shetzorach odom, just like there's a kishem, just like one believes in Borei Olam, so too is that individual to believe in himself. What? Yes, believe in one's self that you're choshev. Believe that you are, as mentioned, your progeny of cheshuvim, and that will give you the added inspiration not to compromise on your Yiddishkeit. The Rav Hutner writes in one of his Maimorim, nowadays there is no Yetzer Hara Avodah Zarah. There's no Yetzer Hara Avodah Zarah, but there's a minus acher. There's a different blasphemy that is being propagated by those blasphemes, those that are blasphemes. Says Rav Yitzchak Hutner, you know what it is? Sha'anoshim eino ma'aminim ba'atzmam. Rav Hutner calls that a lack of self-appreciation is minus. It's called blasphemy. It's called apocrypsis. Rav Yitzchak Hutner, and remember the founder of the Chazon Ish, writes it Mefurish also in a Michtov. Now, why is it called blasphemy? Because to the extent that you realize that each and every one of you were created for a reason, a divinely inspired reason. HaKadosh Baruch Hu orchestrated the events in this world in accordance with your neshama. HaKadosh Baruch Hu gave you a neshama vested in your neshama to create in this world tachlis hachayim for yourself and for others around you. And if you don't believe that, you believe that you could futch your time. I said, I don't know if I ever said it here, my shul, I said it many times. Mr. Twain, as in Mark, once said, there's a favorite American pastime. You know what they call it? Anybody here know what they call it? I'll tell you. Killing time. Let's kill some time. We call it committing suicide. L'machse, l'shlish, u'l'rviyah. Halfway, a third, or a quarter. But it's suicide. There's no such thing as killing time. It says of Yitzchak Hutner that we do not, that this is a form of minus, that we don't believe in ourselves. The Kotzker Rebbe once said as follows concerning the Meraglim. It says in the Pasuk that they thought of us, we thought that we looked at them that they were giants, but we thought they looked at us that we were ants, grasshoppers. Says the Kotzker Rebbe, I want you to know something. The problem with the Meraglim was, why are you thinking about what others think of you, especially Goyim? What does it matter to you? Why are you letting them into your real estate, into your brain? They don't belong there. That's not where they belong. Why do you let them into your mind? Why do you let the Goy into your mind? In Medrash it's brought down, Dvorim Nefloim. This goes back to the Chavetz Chaim. Medrash says, you know what? You know how they really looked at us? The Meraglim didn't know. But the Medrash tells us how they looked at us. They looked at us as if we are angels, as we are heavenly saints, as we are angels. They looked at us that we were angels. We didn't know that. And the truth is, we are angels. The Chavetz Chaim, the Chazon Ish writes in a place that indeed a Yid, every and any Yid, is considered more angelic than an angel, more spiritual than an angel. That's who we are. The Mishnah Ben Leo brings down that all throughout the generations, no matter what the Goyim did to us, they were never successful in compromising our dedication, our identity as Jews. Allow me to explain. We say in Tfilas Ma'ariv, we say in Tfilas Ma'ariv, no, this is not it. Oh, maybe this is it. 1 second. Just don't give me a regular sit if you don't mind. Thank you. We say in I appreciate it, I'm sorry. Listen to the words we say in Shemona Esrei. How many of us have thought about it? We say, where is it? Yeah, 1 second. What am I holding here? 1 second. I'll have to find it. It's here. But we say in the Elitzion, Al Inui Bnei Chayrin. Al Inui Bnei Chayrin. in Elit Zion. So Rav Moshe Shapiro, Zechron Avrocha, asked if there's Inui, it means we are being afflicted by the Goy. So how do you say Bnei Chayrin? And if we're Bnei Chayrin, that means we are not being afflicted. Then how do you say that we are Al Inui? That's his kasha. He wants to say a Gavaldige Chidush, and I thought I saw a riot to it today over here in the Emunah, but I'll get there, Be'ez Hashem Yisborach. One more second, I'll just make sure I have a quick look at this. It'll be Kedai when I find it. Oh, here it is. Huh? Are we Chayras Olam? The events of 39 to 45, those were Chayras Olam. And we say Ne'eli Tzuyin, like I mentioned to you, Al Inui B'nei Chayrin. Now I'll tell you Rav Dessler, and then I'll tell you that's a pshat. Says Rav Dessler, the Goyim have done everything to us over all the centuries. They have pained us, pillaged us, burnt us, murdered us. But the Yid never ever succumbed to the Goyish entreats of being mevatel your identity as a Yid. Whatever they threw at us, isn't it Rav Dessler's Loshen? B'meshach kol shnois ha-Golus, b'nu b'yad ha'amim. We always knew that we are above the Goy. Like Rebbe Jungreis, his father said to her in Auschwitz, they're sitting there waiting to be killed, and she ended up being saved, Baruch Hashem. And her father said, listen to me closely, Kinderlach. Seeing the smokestacks and everything that smelled of Yidden being burnt, we would still rather be a Yid at this very moment than be a Goy. The Elyonis of the Yid. Gam be'eis shenaflu Yehudim b'yadoi vehem ad ofer. Yedu hema b'toich libam ki kol matzovam hinu b'gzera shemayim. It's Shemayim talking and nothing to do with us. Therefore the Goyim were never successful in compromising the Goy, the Yid. There might have been one Meshumad here and one Meshumad there, but that's about it. The masses of Klal Yisrael gave their lives al Kiddush Hashem, because in order not to do that would mean to compromise their identity as Yidden. And that a Yid never did all throughout the millennia, all throughout the centuries. Yidden never compromised their identity as Jews. And that's what's meant, Al Ini B'nei Chayrin. You could painig us, you could hurt us, Inui, you could do whatever you want, but we still retain our identity as Jews. We are B'nei Chayrin. We're never going to allow the Goy to compromise us and our identity as Jews. This is Rav Dessler. Therefore, at the end of a mimer, he says, Ilu hoya la'odem einayim lirois. How beautiful this is, Rabbi said. This is a statement. If we would have the proper perspective, the proper eyes to understand and appreciate what we are witnessing, or what we are. Afilu goy, roya sheyehudi hinoi loy pochus mi malach. A Jew is not less, and as mentioned according to the Chazon Ish, even better than a malach. If I told you that you're a malach, would that not make it incumbent upon you and upon myself to act differently? We have unbelievable koiches. K'may malach, el shezeh mustar, it is hidden. The chumriyos, the bikush hagashomi, the rotzain to be involved in the pleasures of Olam Hazeh, they are mastir, they are mechitzos in front of us. And therefore Rav Dessler ends up and says, Olo lahamin ba'atzmoi, b'shlichus shaloi. You know what that means, shlichus shaloi means? Shlichus shaloi means every one of us is given a divine shlichus in this world. I said over many times in my shul, the Chudush Arim, im eina nili mili. You know what that means, Rabbi say? That if I won't accomplish the shlichus that I was divinely fitted to accomplish in this world, it shall remain forever unfulfilled. Every Jew has his own Hayeshivos and his own divine mission. And therefore, in that respect, you are more choshev than Rav Shach. You're more choshev than Sat Merov. Because you have a mission that they were not given. And that's what we're being told. A Yid is not less than a Malach, or perhaps even greater. Al zeh ba Kodesh Baruch Hu b'tainin l'meraglim, that why don't you consider, appreciate, if the Anokim looked at us, that they were Malachim, why did you not have the self-esteem to realize you're on your own, that you're Malachim? And therefore you would not allow a misinterpretation of what the Anokim saw that you thought they saw, because you were missing in your self-esteem. Ayid has a chiyuv to wake up in the morning and say, Shlo yisani goy, I have no shaykh to goyish gewelt. I am a Yid and a proud Jew, and I know that I'm here for a divine mission. I'm a choshev Yid. Chayiv odem loima b'shvili nivru ha'olam. That's a fact. That's a metzius. The children of the Vilna Goyin write in the Akdama to the Bir Agro and Shulchan Aruch, whenever we say chayiv, it means ad mesiras nefesh mamish. Ad mesiras nefesh mamish. Are we mechuyev to involve ourselves in Yiddishkeit, in steiging, words and nomenclatures which are totally foreign and strange to the Goy. The Goy does not have steiging. The Goy does not have devekus. The Goy does not have mesikus. The Goy does not have breaking mechitzas of gashomi. Only the Jew has all this. And the Jew is being charged to accomplish all these things. So let's say to ourselves, I can never see myself being part of a goy or of a goyish activity, such as mentioned before. It's apocrypsis because you're, as mentioned before, from Rav Hutner and from the Chazon Ish, because you are now denying by your actions of acting like a goy and being with the goy and sitting with the goy. By doing so, you are now making a statement that I'm no different than the goy. That's apocrypsis. You were created with a mission. Such a great and grandiose mission that even Rav Shach and Moshe Feinstein does not have that mission. And if you will not accomplish that mission, it shall remain forever unfulfilled. Now, Kodesh Baruch Hu give you all siyata d'shmaya to hear these words. Number one, the success of the Jew in the Golus depends to what extent he keeps himself away from the Goyim. And if he involves himself with the Goyim, that can the results can be catastrophic, as the history of the Jewish people, as articulated by the Meshech Chochmah B'chukoisai, suggests, opines. That's number one. Number two, realize your Hayeshivos. Realize who you come from. Realize that you have a mission in this world. And realize that you have no free time. A Jew is not given free time. Every moment you have is called for. Accomplish. If you can't learn a Gemara, then say a kapitel Tillim. But every moment is opportunity knocks. Every moment you're given the opportunity to Mekadosh Hashem. May we all be zeicha to learn these most important and fundamental hashkafis hachayim that will lead us, Beis Hashem Yisborach, to the promised land, or meaning better even to Gan Eden and to Olam HaNitzchi. Chazak v'emotz. Chananya ben Akasha, Kodesh Baruch Hu, I could say Kaddish, perhaps? Go ahead, say Kaddish.
Shem Irgun Shir Torah, like to give big ashikah to our Shanim from the Inspiring Joshua, like to give big ashikah, the board member of Irgun Shir Torah, for sponsoring tonight's shir, Mr. and Mrs. Ali Goldbaum, Chavay Rav Scheinerman Shlita. Also like to give big ashikah to Rav Shimon Reader for sponsoring tonight's shir, Nishmas Ove, B'Shlomo B'Ram B'Shmul Yosef, Shchon Levrachos after tonight, in Tammuz. To have the great exclusive sponsoring a shir, call Irgun Shir Torah at 718-851-8651 or email ist@yeshivanet.com. Ashikah to everyone for coming. Chananya ben Akasha, Emor Tzakadosh Baruch Hu, the Zakis, Yisrael. Figures, here we'll talk, Mishneh Mal, and Chofetz, and Matzitri, Yagel, Teviyadeh.
Yiskadei, Shmei Rabo, Omol Yidrachim, Seven Chofetz, Seibet, V'Kanem, V'Karmishitei, Chai Yecholim, V'Cholim, Chai V'Chol Beis Yisrael, V'Agolov, V'Zman Karim, V'Ruamei,